Polar just released the Polar Ignite 3, and it has a new brilliant 1.28-inch AMOLED touchscreen, Gorilla Glass 3.0, a curved lens, and a gorgeous etched design to the bezel. It comes with Polar's new Precision Prime optical heart rate monitor, which of course we will test for accuracy, and it has an upgrade to its internal processor and RAM. But it also comes with a much larger price tag of $330. So let's take a look at the Polar Ignite 3 and see if it's worth it. Okay, I think one of the first things that you're gonna notice about the Polar Ignite 3 is just how slim and light this watch is. Of course, maybe even before you pick up this watch, one of the first things you might notice is that insane AMOLED touchscreen display with, twice the pixel density of the previous Ignite 2. And that pixel density is 416 by 416 pixels, 16 million colors. I would just say that this watch is, tack sharp as far as the display goes. And it weighs in at 36 grams. I think it actually would be lighter if I used the smaller strap that came with the watch as an option. And it sits really nice and close to your wrist, having a depth of only 9.5 millimeters thick. The back of the watch is nice and flat, unlike a large majority of the watches that are out there on the market. I actually think that it's the depth of these watches that makes it feel less big or less bulky. It's 42 millimeters in diameter, and here is how it looks on my extremely small, yet still healthy 165 millimeter wrists. Now, Polar has been doing these etchings to the bezels of their watch for a little while now, and I have to admit, I like it. I like the way it looks. I actually think that Polar makes really good looking watches. I'm not a huge fan of the watch band itself that they're using with this Ignite 3. I know that they're trying to go for some sort of, leather look to this, but it feels really stiff and awkward to me. I asked my wife the same question, what she thought of the band, and she also disliked it quite a bit. But the watch band on these is extremely easy to switch. If you're like me and you don't love what comes with the watch, these watch bands have a little quick release piece to them, and they are compatible with other 20 millimeter options on the market. Now, this particular watch comes in 4 different colors. So that's purple dusk, gray sand, night black, which is what I'm showing here, and brown copper. And each of these colors seem to have a slightly different etched pattern along the metal edge of the watch. Of course, the one I'm showing here just has these lines on the night black version for reference. And of course, all of these new Polar watches that we've been seeing lately are using the new Polar charger, which of course means faster charging times. The Ignite 3 has Polar's Precision Prime optical heart rate monitor with 10 LEDs for wrist-based heart rate tracking, and it does pretty well. You can also broadcast that heart rate data if you're, at a gym and you want to send that heart rate data, out to a machine, or, as often in my case, I like to show that data on a cycling computer or send it over to Zwift if I'm biking indoors. But the data seems to track pretty well, comparing it to this Garmin Forerunner 955 that's got a chest strap connected to it, and the ECG chest straps, they tend to be the most accurate way to track your heart rate. And new on the Polar Ignite 3 is dual band GPS. I'm kind of surprised that they're launching dual band GPS with the Ignite 3. Seems like they would have saved that for maybe something like the Vantage V3 or the new Grit X Pro. That's probably one that would kind of lend itself to dual band GPS, but it is optional, and you do have some pretty simple settings for switching it on and off. But here on this GPS plot, we're comparing it to the Garmin Forerunner 955, which also has a similar dual band GPS chip, and also the Polar Pacer Pro, which doesn't have dual band GPS. And you can see that, just having dual band GPS doesn't mean that you're automatically gonna have perfect GPS plots. Here you can see where the 955 tends to track a little bit better than the Pacer Pro and the Ignite 3. But for this weird small section here, it should just be, an out and back on the same section of sidewalk. And you can tell that the Ignite 3 really drifted on the second half of this into the road. Not sure what's going on there. But just because a watch has dual band GPS definitely doesn't mean that it's gonna have the best GPS tracking in the world. And then software-wise, this watch has a lot of the features that we've kind of come to know and love from Polar. So that's, supporting something crazy like 150 different activity types. So for me, I'm into, swimming, biking, and running. But if you're into equestrian or volleyball or aerobics or ballet, check what they have on their list and see, but Polar probably has you covered here. But the Ignite can also control music on your smartphone. It can provide you with VO2 max estimations from their running or walking or their rest state tests, or it can even help you de-stress with their serene step-by-step relaxation exercises. The Polar Ignite 3 also has something called FitSpark, which will provide you with daily recommendations for workouts. For example, I tend to do a lot of cardiovascular work, and the FitSpark will often recommend that I mix it up and try stretching or, maybe some high intensity training. And the Ignite 3 can not only track your sleep, but it can also track how well you're sleeping and how you're progressing through each of those sleep cycles. And you can actually personalize your Ignite 3 with different watch faces and different colors. I just picked a watch face that I liked, and then I kind of selected colors based on what I thought would be fun. And then finally, software-wise, there's actually 2 new features that they're announcing with the announcement of this watch, but that aren't actually ready as of the recording of this video. But both voice guidance and Sleepwise will be available later this month, along with an update to the Polar Flow app. After that, Sleepwise will be rolled out to all of the Polar users and watches that support Sleep Plus stages. Now, I haven't tested any of this, but I think the Sleepgate piece, which is part of the new Sleep Plus stages, is something that will look at your previous sleep data and suggest things like bedtime and when you might be feeling tired. And then the new voice guidance piece is just this part that will tell you splits and tell you when you're moving in and out of different heart rate zones, dictating through your phone or headphones. I do think that it is going to require a smartphone connection. I'm not 100% sure on any of this stuff, so check back with me once the details emerge and I've been able to test this stuff out. And then lastly, as far as battery life goes on the Ignite 3, you can expect about 5 days, just kind of in that everyday smartwatch mode. But setting it to always on display mode, which is kind of how I have it set here, and using GPS will definitely take a toll on battery life. I'm actually seeing more like 2 days or so of battery life when I've been doing about an hour of exercise per day. And the battery life when using the GPS has increased a little bit. I actually think that that's largely because of the Sony dual frequency GPS chip just being a little bit more efficient. But the old battery life was about 20 hours and the new one is about 30 hours of GPS activity. So you really could track some pretty long events here. Now there is this power save mode. It's just one of the little satellite setting options. I didn't actually test that out, but I am guessing that if you'll do that, you'll get longer battery life. It will come at the expense of GPS typically. Now sadly, this watch is missing multi-sport or triathlon mode as far as I can tell. And I didn't see anything like running power on here, which kind of surprised me. Sometimes I actually think that it takes, engineering work just to remove these options from these watches for these manufacturers, and they do that just to distinguish between their own product line, which, is a little bit frustrating for some of us that, would really kind of prefer to have more additional features on all of the watches that we test here. But I don't 100% think that this watch is targeted towards me personally. I don't think it's ideal for triathletes, obviously. I did test it for, swimming, biking, and running, but I don't think that that's clearly what this watch is designed for. I think that this watch is designed for, more of those active lifestyle users, someone who wants to do some basic daily activities, track their steps and track their exercise a little bit. Maybe someone who really does prefer that slim, clean, stylish design that, is pretty amazing about this Polar Ignite 3. But for me personally, I would definitely prefer a design that actually included a bit more buttons. This watch only has 1 button. Polar's, some of their more sports focused watches have about 5 buttons. it's just easier when you have rain or gloves on, or you're swimming, or even when you're just sweating on a watch, to be able to use those tactile buttons. Lastly, I definitely wish this watch wasn't $330. I think that's a big jump from the previous Ignite 2. I want to say that was about $100 less, so that's a massive jump in my opinion, and it puts the price right up there with Polar's own Polar Pacer and Polar Pacer Pro, and it also gets it, you know, really close to the $350 Garmin Forerunner 255, which I think is a tremendous value with a very impressive feature set. But you know, then again, you know, maybe I have a very loose grip on how hard this inflation stuff is on some of these companies. What do you guys think? Is this something that you'd be interested in? Either way, be sure to get out there, swim, bike, run, rinse, and then repeat it all over again. And we will see you guys on the next one.